If you are a pet parent that feels aligned with holistic or integrative care for your pet, and maybe you're not at a place where you want to do these deeper dive tests, looking at their gut microbiome, screening them for mycotoxins, screening them for glyphosate toxicity, screening them for heavy metals, screening them for intolerances, for a variety of reasons. Maybe you feel like your pet looks healthy from the outside, so they must be healthy on the inside. And I'm not here to spoil that for you, but I am here to tell you that that is not a direct correlation. Maybe you're a pet parent that your pet is young and you're like, I'm not there yet. And right now you're focused on wellness blood work, which is really, really valuable. It is not because we're doing these functional tests that we're looking deeper and maybe trying to peel back the curtain on what's going on with their health because they have chronic issues. Or you're doing it because you're like, I want to be proactive. And I will tell you, there are not many pet parents that want to be fully proactive. A lot of pet parents want to wait unintentionally until there's an issue. I was very proactive and did functional tests on my dog back in November 2025. I've talked about this numerous times, and I'm so thankful I did, because had I not, I would not have known that he had mold exposure, which ultimately led me to finding and remediating mold in my master bedroom, which ultimately is going to help my health as well. But if you're a pet parent that you really just align with holistic integrative approach for your pet and also just want to do wellness blood work, there is one test that I think that you absolutely should be adding on when you're doing wellness blood work. And I don't want to say just wellness blood work, that is not valuable, but that is the level of the surface that you want to scratch. And that is checking vitamin D. It is pulled through blood. So when you are checking the wellness blood work, I think it is very, very valuable to add it on. I do think it's very valuable to do intentional lab testing on it and using a lab that is going to give a numerical value while also giving you a numerical value on how much to supplement and when to retest, because we want to be very, very intricate when it comes to vitamin D. If I could pick one nutrient that I wish more pet parents knew about and screened for and were focused on, it would be vitamin D. Most people think about vitamin D and immediately think about the bones. They immediately think about sunlight, but vitamin D impacts so much more than that. It is very integral and very important and very involved in the immune system. It influences muscle health, inflammation, hormone function, overall wellness. It is kind of like the Swiss Army knife. And yet many pets go their entire lives without ever having their vitamin D evaluated. Many pets have cancer and don't have their vitamin D screened. So vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and it acts way more like a hormone than a traditional quote-unquote vitamin. And this is why when pet parents come to me, they're like, my pet has to be on low fat, and they're eating like ID low fat, a prescription traditional food, and they're like, it has to be lower fat than this. First of all, that's gonna be really hard to do. And I've said this before, when you remove one macronutrient like protein or carbs or fat, it has to be replaced with something else for calories. And I am not the Bible. I firmly believe that when we restrict fat, what are we also doing to vitamin D absorption that needs fat? It's a fat soluble vitamin. What are we setting this pet up for? And so almost every cell in their body has receptors for vitamin D. That means vitamin D can influence so many different systems throughout their body. It is not just a bone vitamin, and it's not just this quote unquote vitamin you think they get from the sun, which, spoiler alert, they really don't. It's a whole body nutrient. And so dogs are obviously different than humans. Pets are obviously different than humans. Humans are obviously different than dogs. But one of the biggest misconceptions I see is that dogs can simply make their own vitamin D from the sunlight. I hear it all the time. Oh, he loves to sunbathe. I'm making sure he's getting his vitamin D. We as humans are very good at producing vitamin D through skin exposure to the sun, but dogs are not. Dogs rely on it through their diet. That means that what they're eating can be incredibly important for influencing their vitamin D. And it matters because it absolutely has a role with regulating their immune system. One of the biggest jobs of vitamin D, think of it again, the Swiss Army knife, and one of the biggest parts in that tool is it's regulating the immune system. It's helping it find balance. It's not underreacting. It's not overreacting. It is responding appropriately. And that's one reason that researchers have looked at vitamin D in pets with chronic inflammatory and immune-related conditions. That's why I tell pet parents when I meet them in person and we do maybe a gut microbiome test or a few of them, I'm like, hey, I think in general we should be screening vitamin D, but if your pet's microbiome is off or they have mold toxins, I'm probably going to be recommending this at some point to screen for it. And many pets I work with have inflammation in some form. That's why they're coming to me. They have skin issues, they have digestive issues, they have arthritis, they have chronic diseases, they have cancer. And vitamin D plays a role in how the body regulates that inflammation. Vitamin D, most people think of it again as bone. Growing up, right? Like drink your milk, get your vitamin D and your calcium. Vitamin D does help regulate calcium and phosphorus metabolism. Again, vitamin D is like a little Swiss Army knife. And this is why I get concerned when we get pet parents that are so convinced that their pets need low-fat diets. And I'm like, what are we doing to the vitamin D, which is affecting the calcium and phosphorus metabolism? Without adequate vitamin D and adequate vitamin D absorption, the body can struggle a little bit to properly utilize calcium. And vitamin D also really plays an important role in muscle function. Low levels don't just affect the bones. It affects the cellular health, it affects the immune system, it affects their inflammation. Again, because these receptors are throughout the whole body. So it can affect their cellular health and their wellness. So pets that make me, really, I think any pet should have vitamin D tested. Again, if you're someone that you're like, I like a minimalistic approach, I really don't like doing a lot of prescriptions, I feed my pet raw food, gently cooked, I cook for them, I'm really intentional on what wellness items they get, and right now you're at a point where you're like, I'm doing that and wellness blood work, I haven't gotten to the place where I'm doing functional testing yet, is I would strongly consider also having their vitamin D checked. When I think about vitamin D screening and testing, I often really, really, really think it's extra valuable for pets that are dealing with chronic allergies, chronic skin disease, chronic digestive issues, inflammatory bowel disease, whether that has been diagnosed or presumed, autoimmune conditions, cancer, kidney disease, heart disease, senior pets that just aren't thriving in general. So and it's really important to test rather than to guess. This is one of those things you don't want to guess on. Vitamin D, more is not always better. Better is better. And so pet parents often hear vitamin D is important and immediately wonder if they should just start supplementing it. And I've actually had one client doing it, and I was like, we need to check levels because we don't want to get vitamin D toxicity. And so too little can be a problem, obviously, and too much can still be a problem. It is real when there is toxicity. This is why data is really, really valuable and really helpful to driving the decision on what to do with the supplementation or to stop. Or now that we're at optimal levels, we're going to go to more of a maintenance supplement for this. So testing allows us to be certain and to understand where that pet currently is with their values. And when it comes to food, pet parents who are feeding homemade food that has maybe not been balanced, not been formulated, maybe has been found on the internet, maybe has been the best of intentions DIYing it, often are deficient in vitamin D. It is one of the nutrients that is often commonly missed. A recipe with turkey or beef and rice and sweet potatoes and peas and carrots is going to fall short in vitamin D. Unfortunately, it is. Fresh ingredients don't automatically guarantee nutritional adequacy, nutritional supplementation, that it's being supplied. It is one of the reasons that balancing the homemade diet intentionally is so important. So one of the reasons I have become very, very interested in vitamin D testing is because I've seen it be very low with pets with chronic health and pets that presumed healthy. I checked my own dog's vitamin D and presumed healthy. Again, didn't know he had mold exposure. Thank God I did these tests before he was sick so that I'm not coming from a place of chaos and frantic and stressed and questioning everything because I'm in information overload. And he is the highest value that I've gotten back on a pet, and he still was low. He was 13 points below normal. And I really don't want a pet at the low end because I'm like, that can fluctuate. I want them really in that middle sweet spot. And so it is one of the reasons that I think it is super important is because I've seen pets that are very, very sick with low vitamin D. Now, does low vitamin D automatically mean that your pet is sick or going to get very sick? Absolutely not. But it sometimes can be another part of the puzzle. And so when you're coming to have your pet seen in a functional medicine setting, or you are practicing functional medicine for veterinary patients, You're often looking at a whole bunch of smaller pieces together rather than like one big isolated piece. And so I'd like to ask you, when was the last time your pet's vitamin D was checked? For many people, the answer is never. Didn't know it was an option. We check the kidneys, we check the liver, we check the glucose, we check the thyroid levels, yet it's not being recommended as part of baseline blood work. It is a very important nutrient that you probably have never thought about. You probably have never been talked to about it. It influences way more than bone health. It is well beyond that your pet is sunbathing and getting it, because that's just unfortunately not how it works. It has a major important role in immune function, inflammation control, and overall wellness. And because dogs are dependent on it being provided to them, whether it is through diet and nutrition or supplementation. I'm not saying that every pet needs it supplemented. We need to figure out where they're at first. I'm suggesting that I wish vitamin D became as routine as checking the thyroid and the glucose and the electrolytes in the kidneys and the liver and the white cell counts and the red blood cells and the platelets. Because when we are trying to help pets live better so that they can live longer, understanding the foundation of health truly matters. If this is the first episode that you've caught of mine, I'm Dr. Bamonte, and I'm so thankful that you are here.